Namaste. My name is Vivekananda. You can call me Vivek. Welcome to a series of HOAs where I study and review some of my favorite books. Today, I study and review the book Start With Why, written by Simon Sinek. The book is full of golden nuggets and so cannot be covered all at once. So I am splitting it into two parts. This is part 1 of the two-part presentation. But first let me take under a minute to tell you about myself. I believe in living a simple life. I believe in thinking differently. I am proud to share my belief with Steve Jobs and Leonardo da Vinci, who said, "Simplicity is the ultimate in sophistication." Here's my simple way. Avoid the cowboys, work with the Indian. Let the Indian handle technology and you live an integrated, simple life. Maybe you have lots of projects and you are struggling to find someone who can integrate and simplify. You can reach me by email at videobook@wake-technology.com. And you can see this video live at wake-technology.com/videobook. There will be 3 elements in each episode of this Hangout on Air series. Presentation, which you are seeing now. Live discussion, which would soon follow. Engagement. I shall engage in conversation with the audience who put comments on the event page or on YouTube. Now, before I proceed further, let me answer the question, why am I doing this? As you may already know, integrate, simplify life is my tagline. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a well-known phrase in the United States of America Declaration of Independence. But these days, we seem to forget, or worse, ignore the very first item there, life. With study and review of works by inspirational people, I hope to inspire those who visit my website to integrate, simplify life. In a talk at TED, Simon Sinek presents a simple and powerful model for how great leaders inspire action. His talk attracted over 23 million views. He wrote the book after that. He says, those who truly lead are able to create a following of people who act not because they were swayed, but because they were inspired. Together, let us study this book with the help of a mind map. He introduces his book by answering the question, why he wrote the book. He says, this book is about a naturally occurring pattern, a way of thinking, acting, and communicating that gives some leaders the ability to inspire those around them. He wrote it as a guide to focus on and amplify the things that do work. A guide to enable us to ask the right questions. He wrote the book hoping to inspire people to do the things that inspire them. The goal of his book is not to give us a course of action. Instead, it is to guide us to discover the cause of action. Among the many examples he gives in the book, 3 particularly stand out. He says when Samuel Pierpont Langley set out to invent powered flight, he was better equipped, better funded, and had a better educated group, but did not succeed. Whereas Wilbur and Orville Wright had none of those resources, but inspired the enthusiasm and commitment of a dedicated team to achieve first powered flight and change mankind. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak started out to put a dent in the universe, and they managed to do it. Similarly, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had his complexities. He was not even a charismatic speaker, but he delivered words immortalized by history and led a civil rights movement that changed America forever. He immortalized the words, "I have a dream." They all started with why. All the inspiring leaders and companies, regardless of size or industry, think, act, and communicate exactly alike. And it is the complete opposite of everyone else. Simon says inspiring leaders start with why, and I think the followers start with what. In the first section of his book, he talks about the world which does not start with why. He describes a swearing-in ceremony of a person as the chief executive of a country. And he exemplifies that most of the time we assume we know, because the description is equally true for Adolf Hitler in 1933 as well as John F. Kennedy after the World War II, if the year of the swearing-in ceremony is missing. This is important because our behavior is affected by our assumptions. We make assumptions about the world around us based on sometimes incomplete or false information. We make decisions based on what we think we know. He asks, do we really know why some organizations succeed and why others do not? Or do we just assume? Simon then goes on to tell us an episode where an American executive went to see a Japanese car assembly line. At the end of the line, the doors were put on the hinges, the same as in America, but one step was missing in Japan. In America, workers would tap the edges of the door with a rubber mallet to ensure that it fits perfectly. But in Japan, they make sure it fits when they design it. And so, they don't need the mallet. There are two ways to influence human behavior: manipulating or inspiring. Inspired people would do it because they want to do it. Manipulation is easy, but most of the time it ends up in some sort of resentment. Simon describes how many companies manipulate the price to entice buyers. He says that for the seller, selling based on price is like heroin. The short-term gain is fantastic, but the more you do it, the harder it gets to kick the habit. Once buyers get used to paying a lower than average price for a product or service, it's very hard to get them to pay more. Fear, real or perceived, is arguably the most powerful manipulation. Peer pressure is often used by sellers to sway the buyer into believing that whatever is being sold is better. He says manipulations don't breed loyalty, although they can drive sales. Over time, they cost more and more. And they increase the stress for both buyer and seller. Manipulations lead to transactions, not loyalty. Just because it works doesn't make it right. In part 2 of his book, he offers an alternative perspective to the traditional approach of doing business. He explains the concept of golden circle in amazing detail. Let me spend some time explaining it to you by deviating away from the mind map. The golden circle is really golden. He draws 3 concentric circles on the board. He labels the innermost circle as why, the middle circle as how, and the outermost circle as what. Most people communicate by starting with the obvious, the what. For example, we make great computers. Then explain how their product or service is better. For example, our computers are beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Then they try to convince how different they are from competition. And then expect a purchase action by closing a deal. Simon says this hardly ever inspires action. He contrasts this with what successful companies like Apple do. Apple's message says, everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. This is Apple's why. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. This is Apple's how. And we happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? This is Apple's what. Apple simply doesn't reverse the order of information. Their message starts with why, a purpose, cause, or belief that has nothing to do with what they do. What they do, the products that they make, from computers to small electronics, no longer serve as the reason to buy. They serve as the tangible proof of their cause. How they do links the two. Let me come back to the mind map. Simon says that this is based on biology rather than just his opinion. Let me zoom in. If we look at cross-section of our brains from the top, the outermost layer of the brain, neocortex, corresponds with the what level. Neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. So we can understand vast amounts of data about what the product or service is about. The middle 2 sections make up our limbic brains. These are responsible for our feelings, but these have no capability for language. The marketing message may or may not be able to address these parts of our brain. When the message fails, the buyer may agree at the what level, but since the message has failed to inspire, the buyer would not feel the need to act and hence respond with, it just doesn't feel right. Simon says that when you directly address why part of the brain, you have greater influence on behavior. The most important question is, if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how can you get people to do what you want them to do? Let me say that again. If you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how can you get people to do what you want them to do? When manipulations thrive, uncertainty increases for buyers, instability increases for sellers, and stress increases for all. You have to clearly know why you do what you do. Once you know why you do what you do, the next question is, how will you do it? How we do things manifests in the systems and processes within the organization and culture. The discipline to never veer from your cause, to hold yourself accountable to how you do things, is the hardest part. Everything you say and everything you do has to prove what you believe. Part 3 of his book is titled Leaders Need a Following. In a chapter titled The Emergence of Trust, he gives the example of Continental Airlines. He says the employees were embarrassed to work there and they felt mistreated. If a company mistreats their people, just watch how the employees treat their customers. Mud rolls down a hill and the one standing at the bottom will be hit with the full brunt. In a business, that is usually the customer. So this was a major problem with Continental Airlines. Herb Kelleher, the head of Southwest Airlines, was considered a heretic when he said, first responsibility of a company is to look after the employees. But he increased the customer loyalty to a great extent. Only when individuals feel they are protected by the organization they work for, they will take personal risks in order to advance that culture or organization as a whole. Simon explains how tipping point tips. He gives the example of TiVo. TiVo is a company that seemed to have everything going for them, but they thought what they did mattered more than why they did it. They ignored the law of diffusion of innovation. TiVo attempted to appeal to the cynical majority by explaining what the product did instead of stating why the company or the product existed in the first place. He says, if you have the discipline to focus on the early adopters, the majority will come along eventually. For a company that wants to bring in innovative products, this is the best approach. I have now come to the end of part 1 of this 2-part presentation. So far, I have covered up to the first 3 sections of this book, which has 6 sections. You can see the remaining 3 sections in the second part of the presentation. Now, that is the full mind map. I hope I have inspired you to strive for what inspires you. You can reach me by email at videobook@wake-technology.com, and you can see this video at wake-technology.com/videobook. Thank you. Yeah, what do you think of the book so far. I mean, he talks a lot about the perception, how companies try to lower the price, make it easy for the buyer to buy. But as he says, it's like heroin. Once you get addicted, that's it.
Well, you certainly know my thoughts about that price is absolutely secondary to the value that the customer perceives or receives in whatever it is, a good or a service that they are purchasing. You're absolutely right. Too much focus is put on price, and I've never put the focus on price. You have to understand. I don't want it to sound so simple, but it doesn't matter what it costs if you are providing the solutions to challenges, and there's value. There's value in that.
The example in the book, he actually goes into greater detail with the TiVo. TiVo is they floated on the stock market, and their stock went through the roof at some point, because they do at that point they had the great technology, but the problem was they went on talking. Their marketing message was all about the technology. This is the technology which can do all these things, pause your live TV, or all of that. But none of them answered the question, why would anyone want to buy it? It never answered the question, why?
You use the example of Apple, and I know how much you think about Steve Jobs and his philosophies, and we're going to learn about those, I think, in a future session. But is there any company on the earth that cares less about price than Apple does? They work against price, against the concept of price, because they know they've created products that the world loves. And the marketing that they have done has been brilliant. Every September, we are sitting on the edge of our seats waiting to see what the new product iPhone introduction is going to be from Apple. And their products are not inexpensive. The products are very, very costly, but the more costly they are, the more that people buy. So they've answered the why. They've done the why very, very well. They've answered that.
Doug, how about you? Your thoughts? And yes, my audience at least don't really know what you do. Why you do what you do, and so on. So,
okay, you'd like me to elaborate? Yeah, sure. Well, I'm an ex-professional footballer from many years ago who has run a couple of businesses, been bankrupt twice, learned lots of valuable lessons. I watched Simon's video. I haven't read the book yet, but a lot of what you're talking about there is in his talk, his TED talk, and it's incredibly powerful. You know, you've covered part of it there. I think it is absolutely imperative that anybody, whatever they're doing, starts with why. You know, whether you're running a business, whether you're running a charity, whatever enterprise that you're involved in, you've got to ask that question. Why are we doing it? That center of the circle is it's everything, because everything comes from that. It's what's in the heart. It's the true motivation of all human beings, but we are distracted by things, by shiny things, by the world itself, rather than going into ourselves and going, why am I doing this? and that's my interest for being here today, is to explore that idea in all of us.
Mm. Mm.
Does that help?
Yeah. So what you're saying is you are exploring all different reasons why people don't do it, and probably you would also want to help, or I don't know. For it's for you to explain further how.
Okay. I've asked myself why. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And for me, the biggest motivation is seeing people's motivation. It doesn't matter who it is. I'm looking at David there, and I've only just met David, and I'm thinking, I'm seeing the thing up there, dreaming with entrepreneurs. He's got a why, and I want to explore that why, because within that why is all the value, is all the precious juice, if you like, that spreads out. It's almost like the why is the center of the sun, and the center of the sun generates the energy out to feed its solar system. So my interest is clearly, first of all, why we're doing things. You agree with that, David?
Absolutely. I learned why at a very early age, and my mother taught me to ask the question why. She wasn't always really pleased when I asked her why, but she created within me the knowledge that it's always important to ask why, and you have to be able to come up with an answer. It's not just asking the question why. You have to come up with an answer that you relate to, that's important for your life. And bottom line, we want to move our lives forward. We always want to keep moving our lives forward, and that's basically the most fundamental why, is because we want to keep on going, and that's why we do. Why I do what I do today, it's pretty simple. I 8 years ago, my son, who was a sophomore in college at the time, he came home that summer. He was in a marketing school, management school, and he came home that summer. He's right up front said, "Dad, you're not branding yourself right. You're not marketing yourself right. You're not positioning yourself right." And I said, "Okay, what do we need to do?" So we spent that summer creating a strategy, and I'm still working the plan that we created in 2006. I think it was about 2006 when we started working the plan, and now I've been very fortunate in my life, Doug, that I've been able to do. I've been very quiet about what I do. I just do it. I decide what I want to do, and I figure out how to go out and do it. And basically, for the last 40 plus years, it's been kind of what I call project work. I don't go out and sell myself and sell the services. I create a project. Then I go out and find somebody who can get value from that project that I created. And I do my homework. I haven't had thousands of customers in my lifetime, but I've had strong relationships with the customers that I've had. And I've been fortunate that I was able to, in each decade of my life, I've been able to change what it is that I do. Today, when people ask me, what am I doing, Vivek can give you the answer why, because he and I work very closely together. But today, I publish video books. And the video books are just sharing the knowledge and the information that I've gathered over the years. But I'm not necessarily talking myself. As a matter of fact, I'm not talking myself. I'm talking with other folks who have impressed me with their knowledge of a certain business concept, and then we do an HOA. I have produced over 300 HOAs since they started. That's how I communicate. So I take a different approach, and as I've said to Vivek very often, my why is because that's what I need to do for myself. I would never share with anybody or tell anybody that copy my business model, because it's not going to work for them. It works for me, and that's my why. That's why I do what I do, because it works for me. And if it doesn't, I fix it and I make it work for me. That's simple.
David, what I find interesting is you saying early on you were already exploring the why. Throughout my life, I've been told not to ask the question. Don't ask why, just do it. You know, when I was at school, I asked, why do we have to learn why A plus B equals C squared? And the teacher said to me, just shut up and do it. It's your maths. You've got to do it. If she'd have said to me, maths is the science of, maths is the language of science, and with this you can create rockets, I'd have paid attention. But she said, shut up and just do it. The why wasn't there.
It's a great analogy, and maybe that's why I wasn't a real popular student in high school, because I was asking the why and challenging the instructors, the teachers, and I wasn't doing it to be belligerent. I wasn't doing it I was doing it because I want to know why. How's that important to me? What kind of value can that bring to my life? And
my partner Vanessa is a school teacher, and we have lots of discussions about education, and the word education comes from the Greek to draw out, okay, and yet our education system in the Western world tends to put in, and so really it's more about inspiring, and this is right on your subject, Vivek. You know, inspiration is much more powerful than manipulation. And you can inspire people by drawing out their innate talent that's there already, their dreams. And I know I'm talking to you, David, because, you know, I see your thing up there about dreaming with entrepreneurs. The dream is where all the juice is, and it's drawing it out that I think is the real secret.
Here's another dream quotation that you probably couldn't read, but it's one of my favorites. It comes from Henry David Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite quotations from him.
Yeah.
That plays into it. But it starts with the dream. It starts with the dream. You can't create your roadmap to how you're going to get it or how you're going to achieve that until you know what it is you're moving toward.
But our education system was born in the industrial age, and the whole point was to get people to fit in so that the machine worked. Whereas now we need people not to fit in, they need to create new environments and new possibilities, and yet our education system is still geared up to get people to fit in. And that's the biggest challenge I see that we have.
Actually, I think there's a bigger challenge to what you just said. The bigger challenge being that because of the internet, because of digital world, we are subject to more information than we can possibly ever absorb and put to good use. So our challenge today is sorting out all the information that we have available to us, sorting out the good information from the bad information. I can't believe the challenge that a teacher, an instructor, a professor has in today's world because of this availability of information.
Can I just say that this really fits in with Vivek, because Vivek's brand is all about simplifying life, and our challenge is to simplify it in a way that we can take the rich resource that is this information, but be able to sort it in such a way, and maybe that's done through artificial intelligence, I don't know, but sort it in such a way that it simplifies it for us that we can live our dreams.
Yeah. And as you were saying, both of you were saying, dreams. Um, even in the book, how did Martin Luther King start his speech? He started his speech with, "I have a dream." He never said, "I have a plan."
That's right.
If he ever
That's right.
had started his speech with, "I have a plan,"
Well, the plan. I mean,
Ma-
he was working the plan as he was sharing his dream. I mean, that was all
yeah,
part of the plan of this dream that he was sharing, and the dream is a starting point. It's a starting point, and a dream brings that starting point to a point of realism for us. Uh, it's how we differ. Our dreams are different. I suppose there's some commonality, but my dream has always been different than the typical entrepreneur's dream. I've never been driven by the dream of money. If it was there, great. If it wasn't, then if you were paying your bills, that's okay. If you weren't paying your bills, you need more money. I mean, that's a simple way to look at it. But what has driven me in my 40 plus years as an entrepreneur as creating goals and objectives and working to achieve those goals and objectives. Then when I've achieved one, I create another one and move on to something else. And I've been very blessed that I've been able to live that kind of life in my lifetime.
Maybe the dream is the why, and the how is the plan, and the what is the action.
Very, very good analogy. Very good analogy.
Because I mentor a number of entrepreneurs myself, and what I find is that they love the dream. Who doesn't love the dream? And then once you start to plan how the dream's going to be realised, it starts to become work. And then when you start taking the actions and you get negative feedback, then all the energy goes. And so you have to revisit the why and going, look, guys, the reason why we're going through all this pain and suffering is because we want to live this dream. And it's creating that cycle of renewal, going from the why you're doing it to how you're going to do it to what you're doing, and then going back and going, so why we're doing it? Because if we're not doing it while we're doing it, we might as well scrap the project because there's no energy. The energy comes from the center of the sun, the why. That's my take on it. Do you agree?
Doug, all I've ever wanted to do in life is come and go as I please. Just come. Are you
doing it? Are you doing that?
I haven't always done it, but yes. The crazy thing about it is sometimes when I've in my lifetime when I've allowed other people into my life, it takes me off the journey path sometimes. But yes, the answer to your question is yes. I've been able to come and go as I please, and like I said, I wouldn't recommend my business model to anybody else, but it doesn't. It's not important. It works for me.
Yeah. Well, I've only been doing. I'm 53 years old now, and I've only been doing it for 3 years. For the previous years, I've always done what other people thought I should do, and even setting up my own business wasn't really my idea. And so I was never in the real why. I was in the how and the what, and that's why I failed.
So when you were a child growing up, was football your dream?
Well, it kind of was, but then my dad hijacked it, and it became his dream, and I was serving his dream then, and his dream was that his son was going to be the top footballer in the country.
Was he?
Of course, when it went,
did it happen that way? Did it happen that way?
I was a professional for 5 years, and I was always on the edge of the dream. I never made the breakthrough, and then I suffered a real bout of depression and dropped out of the game. And my father kind of disowned me, because I didn't stick at it.
Interesting. So you really weren't living your dream; you were living more your father's dream.
Yeah, it's unfair to say it was only his dream because it was my dream to start with.
Sure.
And then he jumped on the bandwagon and he took it over, and that's when it went wrong, really. So
you and I will have to talk sometime about that offline, because
yeah, we'll do.
whereas my father was a very, very important part of my dream, he passed away when I was 23 years old. So he kind of planted some seeds, and then I had to figure it out myself. So
Yeah, let's catch up sometime then.
David, I just wanted a quick opinion from David. What do you think of this? What I'm showing on the screen, and when I showed this slide, I said often the marketing message fails to address these two areas, and then it fails.
Quite honestly, I could not identify with that, and I would have been able to identify with it had I spent more time. I suppose in the first presentation, you spent more time discussing that. That's a question. That's a question? Because I was lost, quite honestly, at that part of the presentation.
Can I make a comment on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that fully. Maybe how it's explained might need to be reviewed, because the what he's saying is the neocortex is the latest layer of brain, and that's the executive function of the brain, and so that decides what to do next. Deeper down in the brain is working out how to do it, is the planning part of it, and then the central part is our limbic brain going to our reptilian brain, and that's our real deep motivations why we do anything. So that's why that does work, but maybe how it's explained needs to be reviewed.
Yeah, that is essentially what he explained it in a sense. In his book, he says if you are unable to reach the center, then you pretty much have lost him.
Yes, because people don't buy on logic. People buy on the way they feel. And the genius of Apple was making people feel that they're getting the best of life, and they're prepared to pay for that.
Question. Go back to that slide for a moment, Vivek, if you would. Are those arrows lined up perfectly, or
no?
They're just as circles working with one another, and you use the arrows just to tie the circles together generally, but not specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doug, you said decisions. You were talking about decisions and neocortex. Neocortex, at least as per Simon Sinek, neocortex does not really play a part in making a decision. Neocortex plays a part in saying that this is correct, this is wrong, this is right, this is not right. But actual decision, what is right for you, is done by the limbic brain. The actual decision itself to act happens in the limbic brain, not in the neocortex.
Well, I did read another article, not to do with science, that backed it up, that said that all of our decisions are subconscious, and our conscious mind, our neocortex, takes the credit for the decision.
Yeah. Because in the same way, the limbic brain doesn't know how to take credit for anything. It just makes the decision, and
because it's all automatic. It's based on all of our experiences of the past, our environment, everything that's enabled us to survive.
Yeah. And and in the second part, I would be actually, let me come to that briefly, what I would be covering in the second part.
When are you doing that?
Next week. Okay. I would be covering this, what's on the mind map here. This covers how to rally those who believe. And here, the salary test is an interesting concept. He talks about salary test. So these are the aspects that would be covered in the next week session.
That.
And there is another example he gives about a big company, how they started, why they started, and what they have done, and what has, in a way, has gone wrong. We can say that. Because yeah, the company remains big, but it has lost its why.
Lost its soul.
Yeah.
The soul has moved out of this world.
So and the last part of the book actually covers how you can discover why. What are the things that you need to do, or what are the things you cannot do, or if you want to discover why, and if you go in a certain way, you will not discover your why, and he gives reasons and so on. So I would be covering that in the second part of the presentation. So that would be next week. Hopefully it would be 3 o'clock my time, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes.
David, I hope you would be able to join for that as well. So any closing thoughts, either of you?
Well, we're halfway on the journey here, aren't we? We've covered half of Simon's book. The second half is going to be intriguing as well, and then tying it all together for the message of really starting with why. David?
I think you've done a good summary job. I have nothing to add.
Super. So you're going to join us next week as well then, David?
Vivek, you did say 3 o'clock your time. Same day, next Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Super.
Yes. Wednesday is a pretty open day for me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd like to with you as well, David. So
sure.
If we can find a way.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. So
okay.
Thanks for joining us today. All those who are on the YouTube, and because of certain technical difficulties, we had to start this late. Our electricity, they decided to change our meters and so on, and it was, of course, scheduled earlier. In the sense, it was planned to be happening today, but I was expecting them after 4 o'clock, but they turned up at 12 o'clock. So what can you do?
Best laid plans of mice and men.
Yeah.
That's fun. Okay. That's fun. Okay, we'll see you all next week then.
See you all next week. Thanks for joining us today, and integrate, simplify life. Thank you.
Bye-bye.